Feeling like I'm fresh out the water, put that on my daughter, I'm dripping Mystique. Pin to the pad of my author and marathon jogger, been running for weeks. Yeah, I tell no lies, my eyes on the prize, you lose by choosing to blink. I found a treasure by taking on pressure and pushing myself to the brink. Looked in the mirror to tell me that I'ma be wealthy, I said I concur.
What's going on? This is City Chapters Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby J, and today is Chapter 6 with Jade Warpenburg. Jade is in a transition, but he was the previous co-owner and cinematographer at Kindnss, which was a cinematography studio downtown. Me and Jade know each other from playing soccer. That's where we originally met.
Yeah.
So we've played soccer together for quite a few years now, on the same team and sometimes on the other team against each other, which I don't prefer, but you know, it is what it is. So, he graduated from Vancouver Film School and Eastern Washington University. You can find him on imdb.com to view the projects he's been a part of, including Z Nation, where he was the director of photography for 11 episodes from 2014 to 2017. You also might have seen his face on ads from Global Bank. I certainly do every time I go to Safeway on the South Hill. I'm like, yo, that's my dog. That's Jade right there on the little dividers for the groceries that you put on the thing. So, yeah, that's my brother. I've always been interested in his work. So this is an opportunity for me and him to sit down and really talk more about that, and for me to learn more, and for you people out there that are interested in film locally, this is one of the guys. So, yeah, there it is. That's my little intro for my brother here, Jade. And how you feeling today, man?
Good. Yeah, the weather's been not so great, but just got married in this past week. So yeah, things are looking good.
Yeah, was it kind of was the wedding supposed to be outside? How did that go for you guys? We were planning for it outside. We did it on Lake Coeur d'Alene. And it was raining the entire day. The Airbnb, the water line broke in the morning, so we were out of water for like 8 hours. But as the day kind of progressed, as we got closer to the ceremony, the skies cleared, and it ended up being a pretty magical night. So awesome, man! I'm glad. That's sometimes those kind of things will test you, and then right at the end you get that break. You know, God will bless you. You know, so well, yeah, man. It has been like West Side weather over here. Like middle of June, it's just pouring rain, floods, like it's insane.
Yeah, if it's not fire, luckily, hopefully that fire season gets a little delayed, but we'll see.
Yeah. I know everybody keeps saying like, oh, at least we won't have a fire season. I'm like, well, that depends on the temperatures. Because if all this rain comes and all this brush grows and then it gets really hot, like we're going to have a worse fire season than normal. So we'll just pray for the best though. And I don't mind rain, but it's just getting a little much this late in the season for us. You know, it's definitely like more West Side weather. So anyway, the one thing I've never really got to know about you in the years that we've known each other is like your backstory, your ethnicity. So yeah, just tell us about that.
Yeah, so I guess starting from the beginning, I was about a year old when I got adopted, and I came from South Korea, and like at the time, South Korea in the 80s was like a pretty like poverty stricken, like, nowhere near what it is right now. Like it's a technological giant.
Right.
And so, I came from a single mom. I think the little that I do know of her, like she very much was cognizant of the fact that like she wasn't going to be able to raise me. And so I don't know. I really don't know where I'd be today if I didn't get adopted. And so my parents at the time that I was adopted, my mom said that she couldn't like biologically have a child, so they started to look into that process, and it took about 6 months, and then I came over. And then as I kind of like I grew up in the country. So we, I had a class like of 15 kids, and then
where were you at?
Out in Spangle.
Spangle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like very much a farming community.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, like the lack, I think it was, for me, I never really like saw, I was only around, Caucasian
white people.
And so
Spangle?
Yeah. And so it was like a weird, like going.
Yeah.
So I started kindergarten through 8th grade. I was in Spangle, and going into high school, I wanted to play soccer. And so then I transitioned over to LC. And those worlds can be farther apart.
Oh, for sure.
And so it was the first time I saw like actual diversity within like, I mean, really ever. Yeah. And wow. It was, I think it, as a high schooler, and especially like the way that I was still pretty like, to myself. And like, I didn't really like, I didn't have too close friends, but even then it was kind of like it's pretty eye opening. And I think like it's something that I, even right now, like Spokane still probably has a lot to do in catching up in terms of like it's diversity, or just like accepting different cultures. But from when I went to high school to now, like I've seen Spokane grow so much. And this is, I guess, kind of jumping slightly ahead, but like this is something that I've talked with students before, just relating it to like the film community, like what it was in the 90s when there were only like a couple production companies around, to what it is now, and to how more accessible things are. Like I think that it's only like up and up from here. But yeah, kind of going back to high school. Yeah, a lot of my friends who I ended up kind of like doing film stuff with, they always said that like they knew they were going to do film from like a super early age, and like that really wasn't me. Like I played soccer. I was pretty good at soccer, but I was, I guess, I was a really terrible student. And like my mom was an English teacher. And so we had at it all the way through high school. Like, I really didn't I wasn't like focused on one certain thing. And so going out of high school, I went to junior college over on the west side. I played soccer for a little bit, and I still was kind of like lost in like actually like my career focus. Cause I kind of knew it, I knew at that point that I wasn't really going to like make it professionally in soccer. And so once I kind of stopped doing that, then I had to like actually sit myself down and like say like what I want to do. And that took a long time. And like, I was definitely, being away from my family and kind of having, the foundation up until that point, which was soccer, taken away from me as well. Like it was tough. It was really tough. And like, if it wasn't for, I kind of like I stumbled upon a black and white photography class. And I remember like that first quarter, that was the first time that I had like actually been engaged, that I'd wanted to go to a class, that I was like looking forward to like what was going to come next. Like it was the first time ever in my kind of like school life that I'd had that feeling. And so something in me clicked. It just took like 20 years to finally see like maybe this is an actual path to like go down. And then I took some other like film studies classes, came back to Spokane, then went to Eastern to their film program, went through theirs, and then went up to Vancouver to their film school, and like it was just like a year-long intensive program that, you know, you're doing like 12, 14-hour days every single day, whether it's the schoolwork or like, you know, you're helping out their friends on sets. And after that year, I stayed up there for another year, then just like did whatever. All of it was for free. But, you know, outside of LA, like Vancouver is one of the largest like film communities.
Vancouver, BC, right?
Yeah, Vancouver, BC. Yeah. So yeah, music videos, short films, feature films, whatever. And I did that for another year, then came back to Spokane in like 2012. And yeah, just kind of started back all over again. And it's gone from there.
Right. Okay. I'm going to backtrack a little bit towards when you were younger. So, yeah, growing up in Spangle, being full Korean, that must have been probably a little challenging, I would imagine, because, you know, nobody else looks like you.
Yeah.
Were you teased at all?
There were definitely moments. I think I was fortunate enough to have like a group of like 3 or 4 kids that I had basically grown up from, like when we were like 4 or 5, where like, I don't think they noticed either. They, you know, they were just like, oh, that's just another friend. But I mean, they're definitely,
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, you know, because like stereotypically you would think like, oh, that must have been, was it, you know? And I like to ask those hard questions because, I mean, those obviously first years are formative on how you see yourself and like how you blended with your community or didn't.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild, man. Taken from Korea, adopted, and then placed in Spangle.
Yeah.
Wow.
Couldn't have been
like that's
more opposite.
Like insane. So another question I had is, you said you wanted to go to a high school that offered a soccer program. How did you know and like fall in love with soccer growing up in Spangle? How did like your gravitation get to soccer?
It was, I think, it was my parents just kind of threw me into every single sport. Like they got, it was either like I was soccer, then I was pretty good at baseball, and I probably would have done that if they weren't in the same seasons. Yeah. And then they threw me into wrestling because I was wrestling. I got kicked off my bus line because I was wrestling with my friend every single day at the back of the bus. So they're like, well, why don't we just do that? So I think my parents were just like, he has a lot of energy, so we're just going to put him into everything. And I think I naturally gravitated towards soccer.
And so you were obviously just playing some soccer programs, but then in high school, they didn't have an actual soccer program.
Yeah,
so you
had
a
school in Spangle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. And so when you came to LC, what year did you graduate?
2005.
2005. Okay. Yeah. I'm 07. So, that, and where your family was still out of Spangle. So you were just getting taken.
Yeah. My mom would drop you off
and
there, leave me under the skate park. I'd skate an hour before school and then go to school.
UTF.
Yeah.
RIP.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad. I used to skateboard there too, man. It was a cool place. Dangerous, but it was cool.
Very dangerous.
So that being the first time you've seen some diversity, but even so, still in Spokane, like we obviously don't have a big Asian population yet. I mean, it's growing, but it's still very small. Did you end up befriending any other like people, Asian Americans in high school, or were there
were like, I mean, in my class, like I had a friend who was Korean as well, but like, there's probably under
like
10,
exactly
10 in the class of 400.
Right.
And so even at the time, like I still didn't see that many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that I think that I have thought more and more about, like, when you don't see, I think that just on a general whole, like the fact that like more and more Asian Americans are becoming like seen and popularized in media is huge, because it is something where not necessarily for myself, but maybe the younger generation of Asian Americans, like it's something that they haven't had anything to look up to for the longest time. And a lot, like if it's media specific, like it's pretty negative up until this point.
Yeah, I know that's crazy to me, because I don't know, maybe it's just because I think there's a lot of things wrong with white culture. So I look and I love other cultures, like, and I've always, appreciate the differences of other cultures. But I guess for me, like with understanding you, is like that being somewhat, or was it at all, like an identity crisis, like, not knowing or having anybody really around that looks like you, though you were raised with white people. It's still got to be like this kind of weird feeling coming, like knowing you were born in Korea. You don't get to, know your mother. You don't get to know any of your immediate like bloodline, and raised by this white family in Spangle. Maybe you don't notice those things when you're younger, but as you got older, were those things that you started to think more about, and how it like formed you as a person? And you got to the West Side too, to go to school. Yeah. And you said you went to Vancouver, which has a big Asian population. Yep. So at that time, you probably started to get to know and make more friends like yourself. Yeah. And it was a very like, just like, it was a foreign experience to me, right? Like being around a majority of the people who looked like you. So it took me a long time, and like it was almost like being around a certain culture for so long. Like I have adopted a lot of that. So like I still was like very much like like the white kids that I grew up around. And so it took me a bit to like. Because like Vancouver specifically, like I was seeing someone who was she was Chinese, and she had a large group of friends who were like they're all Chinese as well, and like they're very like, a lot of them were like traditionally like Chinese, because there's a huge influx who live kind of like, there's a city called Richmond that's right outside of Vancouver. It was weird. Yeah. It was really weird. And I think that like, for me, like it's something that I've never been able to like truly pinpoint like how it's actually affected me. Yeah. But the fact that I have grown up, my parents raised me extremely well. I love my parents. Yeah, I love all the people around me. So I think if I didn't have as many positive experiences, it would have been a lot more difficult for me to like try and like find a way. That's good. That's a great way to articulate it, because it does seem to me, it always seemed this way to me, whoever raised you did a very good job. You hold yourself very well, proper. You're a strong individual, and the only time I see things get a little wild is when we on the soccer field, hey, all things are up when we out there, but as soon as we get done, it's back to being respectful. I think people are a bit surprised whenever they've known me for a long time, just on a personal level, and they come and see me play soccer. It's like, all right, I got to give you a warning here. Yeah, seriously. I love it. Well, cool, man. That's, well, I'm glad to know more about you there. Have you ever been back to Korea or anything yet? No, it's something that I plan on doing here really soon. Yeah. Because it's such a beautiful country now, and like, I feel like it's something that might be like the last piece for me to like tie up. Yeah, I think
in this whole journey.
Yeah, I think that'd be an amazing experience. Yeah, and I've heard such like awesome. I dated a Korean for a little bit, and yeah, she was telling me about just things back home, and I was just like, sounds amazing.
Yeah,
sounds like such a cool place. So, because when I went to Ireland, now my family a few generations ago came from Ireland, but when I went there, man, it was such an amazing experience, and my attachment compared to yours and going to Korea is not nearly as strong, but it was like everything I dreamed of. It did make me feel something that I haven't experienced when I've traveled anywhere else. It just felt like I was back home or like where I belong. And it's a hard feeling to describe, but the people there, everything just felt like home, you know, and it's odd, but it's true. You know, as soon as I flew in and I could see Ireland, I just felt like this elation, this sense of like being where I'm supposed to be, you know, in that moment. Like I just knew I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be. And you don't get those moments often, especially sometimes for me in Spokane all the time. If you're here too long, it can, that same environment can be taxing. So yeah, that'll be cool, man.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go back over how you kind of stumbled in the film. You went to junior college.
Yeah,
you were playing soccer there. You weren't really sure what you were going to do as far as your study. Yeah. You're just kind of whatever.
Yeah. To be like just 100% honest, like I took the black and white photography class because I thought it was going to be the easiest elective.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is a class where I probably don't have to like take a lot of quizzes or read a lot of textbooks. And so like it was out of laziness. To be completely honest.
And so you take that class and that actually sparked like a huge interest into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think like for photography specifically, like it's such a, you know, like I said, like I'm still pretty introverted at this point, but especially in going through high school, like middle school, all that up until college, like I think photography like celebrates it. And I think that to be a good photographer, you have to like, you know, and as an introvert, you're looking at the world in a completely different perspective than someone who's maybe not so much, you know, it's not so insular. And so I think that's why like I got so attached to it. Cause it's like, I can do this by myself and like, I can kind of excel at it by myself. And that's fine. Like that's I'm not gonna like be shamed for it. And I think that's like the biggest reason why like I just kind of like gravitated towards it is because it's just it was such a calming thing for me to do, whether it was in the dark room or just like driving around the city or whatever. Like it was without that class, I definitely wouldn't have gone down the career path that I did.
Yeah. So just the whole process of that class, like once you started on the assignments and all that, it just like kind of clicked. Like it was just like, oh man, like you just saw the vision of how this could really work for you.
Yeah. And then cool. I kind of was like, oh, maybe I should try out, you know, a film studies class. And so then I went into the film studies class and like, it was the same experience where like, it just something clicked. And like, I was like, I was excited to do anything in that class. And just, like I said, like it hadn't, those type of experiences hadn't really come up for me before. And after the film studies class and after the photography class, then it's like, not only was I, doing really well in both of those, I think having the support of the teachers it was so huge for me. Like, saying like, oh, you're pretty good at this. Like a lot of that praise early on is so beneficial to my confidence. And so after those two classes, I'm like, well, like these are this I could see the field that I was going into. And after that, I'm like, well, now I gotta really like push towards it as hard as I can, because there aren't a lot of other options.
Right. So this was at the junior college. Then after your time there, did you get your AA?
Yeah, so I did one year there, and then I just finished it up at the Falls. So I moved back to Spokane.
Okay.
And then I got my AA at the Falls, and then I went to Eastern.
Yeah. And you got in for their film program?
Yeah. And I actually only did a year. I bounced around a lot. And so I only did a year there. And at the time, like Eastern's program has changed so much since I went there.
It's pretty big now.
It's big. It's big now. But like when I went there, like they were definitely a lot more like screenwriting focused, just because like they didn't have the resources to focus on like the cinematography aspect that I was interested in. So I left after a year, and that's why I went up to Vancouver, is because I was reading about them, and like they're definitely like, they have studios, they had, millions of dollars worth of equipment, and like that's the place where I need to be.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So how long were you in Vancouver then?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah.
A year for the program, 1.5 years, just like doing whatever.
And what did you get? You got a degree from there?
Yeah.
Was it a BA or?
It's just like a technical. It's a technical college, basically.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So, what was were you playing soccer in Vancouver? This is just a personal. What's it like up there, man?
That was probably like after I got done playing at junior college. Like I probably didn't play soccer for like 6 years.
Oh, really?
Until I moved back to Spokane.
Oh, okay.
I was just done. I was done. I hated it. I hated soccer after I got done playing for junior college. So I was like, I thought I wasn't going to play again. Yeah,
really?
Yeah. But then I picked it back up.
I'm glad you did, man.
Spokane.
Glad you did. So, was there any like pinnacle projects or moments up in Vancouver that you would like to share? Like anything that was like stand out about your experience up there?
Probably not project wise, but I had like the cinematography instructor. Who was this like, he's like this old Chinese guy who used to work on like all of like Jackie Chan's early films.
Oh, what?
He was like,
oh snap.
And he was what's the best way to describe him? He's like probably like the Asian father, like your typical Asian father, where like nothing was ever good enough. And
like the master that is never pleased.
He was freaking like he was so like brutal in his criticism that I think that as tough as it was, because like there would be times when like there'd be kids on like the verge of like tears. Oh yeah, just because of how like honest all the time, and like you rarely heard any like actual compliments. But I think I had built up enough confidence going into the program where I could handle that, and because of the way he taught, and then I was able to work on a couple like just personal projects with him after I graduated. I think that those experiences like helped me basically, like, I mean, art specifically, like you have to form such a thick skin. And I think not only do you have to handle criticism, but you have to like know where the criticism is coming from, and whether it's constructive or whether it might not be as much.
Yeah, it's baseless.
Yeah. And so because of that,
but this guy,
I knew
Jackie Chan films.
Jackie Chan. Yeah. So I knew he knew his stuff.
Right.
And being under him and like, being able to like shadow him. Like,
sounds awesome.
Yeah. It was awesome. It's awesome now.
Yeah.
It
was
sucked
hard
at times
then. Yeah, I'm
when
sure.
I was
But that's part of the process, right? Like what better way to learn from somebody that really has the experience. That's just, I mean, in my eye, I already see that as like being in a movie itself, like learning from somebody of that nature how to do film. And this guy's, like you said, kind of that classic master that's like,
And the kids, like, there were 35 kids in my class, and I still kind of like kept up with them a couple years after.
Yeah.
And like the ones who were able to like handle being around him were the ones who kind of succeeded afterwards. Cause like, I think there were only like,
make or break you.
I think this is a film school. Yeah. And like, I think there were only like 2 or 3 kids who were still doing film full time after, like, even like a year after, like everyone else.
Really?
And this is what I've seen quite a few times, like with kids going through film school, is like the moment if they don't have the drive in the program, the moment they get out of it, it's like instantly gone.
Yeah.
And it's tricky, and it happens all like 90% of kids who probably come out of film school,
they get into it thinking it's going to be something that they realize
it's not.
Takes a lot of
work. Or their
work.
dreams are too lofty. Like kids just want to instantly become directors.
Right.
When they get
they
out
just think, I'm going to make a badass movie and be famous. And no, it takes,
doesn't happen.
No, it takes a lot of work. But I do, from that understanding of, the film industry and all of that, like, people are going to be brutally honest, and sometimes they're even just going to try to tear you down, even if it is good. Yeah. Because you do have to have that thick skin in that industry, in a lot of industries, at any high level in anything that you're going to do. Basically, you're going to find the ones that are above you or have done things before you that are going to be brutally honest. And then you also have to vet whether this person is trying to keep you in your place so that you aren't a challenger to them. But in this scenario, obviously this is your instructor, so he's being brutally honest. And I think, like you said, having a tough skin in film is essential, but in life, if you are trying to attain anything at a high level, like, you're always going to have these individuals telling you like, oh, I would have done it this way. I would have, but you don't even do what I do a lot of times, or you haven't done more than me in what I'm doing the same, so I think that vetting process, which sounds like that's what this guy was intentionally doing to you guys, like, well, if you can't take my criticism, you shouldn't even be doing this. And to weed out the ones that are serious from the ones that he's doing them a favor in the long run. It might be hard at the time, but if you can't take that kind of criticism, then you shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. Which, some people could look at it how they want to, but I still believe that in the growth of a human, like, you need stern leadership. You need people that do, like, everybody wants to be so soft these days, and it's like, no, like, there's a reason that masters are tough on their students. There's a specific reason for that. And if you don't have that toughness, then you don't have the resiliency to make it through the hard times. And, like, if you're going to pursue your dreams, you have to have a high level of resiliency, bottom line. And your people who train you or teach you, if they're not giving you that, like, they're not doing you any service at the end of the day. Yeah. At least that's my viewpoint. And you might not like it, but, steel sharpens steel type of thing, like, you have to be willing to go through that. And so anyway, I love that, man. I love that I got that part out of it, because I used to watch Jackie Chan films all the time when I was young, So to know that you like studied under and worked with the guy that worked. What do you remember his name?
His name was Ricky Lee.
Ricky Lee.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, and I think he, I don't know if he's still teaching up there, but yeah, he was probably the most influential person in my career for sure.
Yeah, has to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like so far, like
Yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's so cool, dude.
Yeah.
What projects did you guys do together after you graduated?
They were just like short films
Yeah.
he was the director of photography, the cinematographer on, and then I just worked under him as a camera assistant.
Nice.
And so I got to kind of like just see just how he worked, because that was like going off of that, like it was just so, being up in Vancouver and being around these high level professionals like on these sets, like I got to see like how they actually work, because up until that point it was just our short films, and those are like, it's minor leagues compared to what these guys are doing. And, there was another one that I had worked on. And it was the only time that I truly felt in over my head, because I agreed to like do this one short film, and the DP was a previous student at Vancouver, but he was already like pretty well known like down in LA, and now he's done spots. I've seen so many spots he's done for Squarespace and Nike and like huge companies. And like, he probably knew that I didn't know enough to like be in the position I was in, but I wouldn't, and it was, I felt embarrassed.
Those are
at
the
times.
best moments, though,
and
sometimes,
like,
right?
Because you can either like say, I am so far in over my head, and you remember that moment, and you're like, I'm not gonna let that happen again, and I'm going to know what I screwed up on, and just everyone can make those mistakes, but you just don't let them happen again. Like, that's such a key thing in, I guess, in any job.
Right. It's good to throw yourself in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many individuals that we admire and look up at too, and we don't realize that most of their time in their careers, they were in over their head, and they just figured it out along the way. Like, I'm listening to Shoe Dog right now by Phil Knight. Basically, he was over his head for the first, like, probably still is. I mean, I don't know what his, but the whole book, he's describing like how he never knew how he's going to pay the employees. He never knew how he's going to make the next shoe payment. He never knew who his next like manufacturer. Like, it's continually, he was in over his head, and so that's like, being in over your head is scary, and you feel like an imposter at times, but that's really what helps you become great, because if you're always playing in these safe zones, like, you're never really challenging yourself to see what you're really capable of. And sometimes you amaze yourself. Sometimes you let yourself down too, but the times where you amaze yourself, you're like, oh, wow, like, I actually handled that really well. I got through that really well. Yeah. So,
yeah. And that's always been a tricky, I think in part due to the instructor, but like, that's always been a tricky thing in my career. It was like, I have an issue, like, giving myself those wins at times, and like saying like, oh, actually I did do a good job on this. And,
right.
And cause I am extremely tough on myself to a fault, for sure. But I mean, if I were to choose one way or the other, I'd probably choose this way, instead of like constantly, thinking that nothing is wrong with what I'm doing.
Have you had people tell you a lot in your life, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself?
Yeah, there's been a lot of those moments, for sure. Yeah.
I have that people have told me that a lot, through my life. And a lot of times it just comes down to like we just don't want the same things, you know, and like where I'm trying to get to, and the aspirations that I have, they're very high. So, and there is that balance of like forgiveness and understanding, like, you know, that was good work, but it is hard to feel like it's ever good enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like, God, that could have been better, or I know I can do this better. So it's hard to be in those moments, in those wins that you have, and like really be able to sometimes enjoy them. And you hear a lot of greats talk about that. They're like, yeah, I celebrated that for a moment, but then it's on to the next, because now that's in the past, you know, and now it's on to what we got to do, what the next move is. Yep. So I try to, you know, something like gratitude is something that I've been trying to work on. And just being appreciative of like what I have done, even though to me, what I've done is really on a small scale so far, you know. But the thing is too, is like, you know, each of us, we did throw ourselves into positions that are difficult, and there is no guarantees. Yep. You know, being a business owner, starting your own studio, all those kinds of things, like that is throwing yourself in the ocean. Yeah. It's not even the pool no more. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've been a part of a lot of other failed things. And like, you know, I think because of that, because of those experiences, and like Kindnss specifically, like the two people that I started with, I've known them for over 10 years, and through we've worked in different capacities with each other. But I think we've all come from the same failures. And I think that's why Kindnss as a company was such a, you know, we were successful, and they are still successful. I know they'll still they'll still stay successful just because of their ethics, their work rate, their value to their employees. It's all things that they didn't really see maybe in their previous you know, employers or job situations that now they can finally implement. But Kindnss wouldn't be what it is and what it will be if we didn't all experience those same things.
Yeah. Was it, how many people started Kindnss? There was the three of you.
Yeah. And we carried that for 4 years, basically up until like the beginning of COVID, where we started. Like COVID is when we started hiring people. So all three of us, we took on, we were able to do so much just because like it was a lot of, I mean, all those 4 years, it was just long days, lots of sacrifices.
Yeah.
But we were willing to make those because we were so close to each other, and we kind of like, I think we all, like I said, that we all had the same exact like mindset, and it was a pretty like awesome thing to see.
Had any of you owned your own studio or like agency type?
I had
before
one that I'd tried to start with other people previous to Kindnss, and that one didn't go super well. And I think that was one of the like I still love both those guys who I started with, and they're both super talented. But like, you know, sometimes things just don't like work, and but it was another, like, because of that, you know, that I learned something that I kind of brought into Kindnss that I knew that I didn't want to repeat that. Like going back to the thing, like, you can make mistakes, but just don't make them again. Yeah. And I think the what I was bringing to the table in Kindnss, I think that there was those experiences kind of shaped, you know, what I was able to kind of do within the company.
Mm-hmm. So kind of started in 2016 or 17?
2016.
16?
Yeah.
And well, I guess we'll just stay on Kindness for now, because I definitely want to talk about the, getting out of the film school and then you working on Z Nation for a while, of course. But since we're on Kindness, we'll just stay there and talk about this business model and how. So you came into 2016. You had a previous studio agency. Is that properly how you call them?
Yeah, it's a. It was kind of like a production company.
Okay, production company.
Yeah.
All right. And so you had known these other two individuals you started the business with. Do you want to name their names?
The ones that the previous one
at Kindness.
Oh, at Kindness. Oh, Ben Fowler and Joni Elizabeth.
Okay.
And they have worked at several agencies, and Ben is one of the first guys that I had. It's ILF is just a couple blocks that way. He used to work at ILF, and when I came back to Spokane, I just had a resume that I'd printed out, just walked right into the studio, just dropped it off. I don't think that's how usually that process works. It's not going into a restaurant to drop off your resume, but I just did that, and they gave me a call a week later, and that's where I met Ben. And Ben and I have as far as being on set, there aren't a lot of people that I have meshed so well with, and Ben's always been the top person, and we've known each other and worked well with each other for years and years and years.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the two people. Yeah.
And what are their roles?
So we all kind of we all sort of tried to share certain roles, but if we're to break it down, I was definitely on the cinematography and post side. Ben was kind of as far as a director, both on set and then kind of overseeing certain projects. And then Joni was, producer, kind of behind the scenes, just general organizer. She kind of kept the ship running for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you three decide you wanted to start Kindness? What came about?
It was all, I think we'd kind of thrown the idea around a couple times in previous years. And then we all were basically unemployed and just doing freelance work at the same exact time. So we just thought well, why don't we just give it a go? And we worked out of a coffee shop for the first for the first 4 or 5 months, and then got our office downtown, which they're still in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty it's still pretty foreign experience to me, trying to know exactly what to do. But the fact that we all kind of had each other and just kept on pushing, all that stuff will come, and because we're the type of people that we are, we were able to learn what to do and what not to do, and as far as interacting with customers and promoting ourselves and all this stuff that we really didn't have to do leading up to Kindness. We just were able to figure it out pretty fast as the company grew.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
What was kind of your target for clients? Were you trying to do commercial work primarily?
I think, commercial work was always our thing. We started off doing a lot of local work, whether it's agencies or direct clients. And then, that turned into just some larger national stuff. That just kind of splinters off into other things. And, once I think in the commercial world, once you kind of work with one client and they have a really positive experience, they might know someone else who works at a different company.
Yeah.
Word spreads, and it just kind of it kind of came about as just sort of like a, you know, almost like a grassroots sort of thing, like word of mouth. That's about how it happened.
And because I've seen some of the work that you guys have produced, and I mean, it's like top grade, like professional looking. I mean, at the, like, it just looks like it's work from the highest level. So it's like, I've always appreciated that, and always, you know, have wanted when City Chapters is at the right place to work with you guys on a project. You know, obviously specifically you, if that opportunity is available when the time is right. But yeah, the work that you guys do is like, that's the level that when I want to do projects eventually, like I'm waiting until I can afford to do projects like that, because that's the quality I'm going to do if I'm going to do anything, you know? So, so what were some of the challenges over the last 4 years that you guys faced as a business? Like, was it doesn't sound like it was getting work necessarily.
No.
Sounded like that came pretty naturally once you guys hit the...
Yeah, I think it was just like, you know, there's a lot of travel, and Ben and Joni, like, they have families, like, you know, I was in a relationship, but like, that's nowhere near what it's like having like kids, and there's a ton, you know, I think just like travel and workload and like trying to, like, you know, create like a healthy family life to work life or personal life. Like that was probably the trickiest part. Like, there was as far as like from a company and like interpersonal standpoint, there's like times, like any time that you spend, we were spending a lot of hours, of like on the road in airports. Like, naturally there's going to be like times where you disagree, but overall, like, the three of us worked so well with each other that like that if there was a conflict, we would address it right away
and find a resolution.
As opposed to just letting it
essential. Fester. Let it fester and turn into something that doesn't need to.
No. Right. So like the biggest thing was just travel, workload, balance, family life, balance. Yeah.
Those are pretty awesome problems to have. You know,
if you were to pick,
like pretty, you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes there's obviously way worse ones you can experience in business. So what was some of the coolest projects that you've done with Kindnss?
We've done like, I would say like a lot, as much as the travel kind of like sucked at times, like it brought us to a lot of places that, you know, we wouldn't really have the opportunity to, like in 2019. So the year prior to the lockdown, like, you know, we had gone to Norway, I'd gone to Japan, Australia, like, you know, we'd been over to England a couple of times. Like, I got to go and see I'm a big like Chelsea supporter. So I got to go see the season opener in London, and so like those types of things wouldn't have been possible without the work.
That's amazing, man. That's what that's the dream for City Chapters, to be taking me all over to different cities. So that's so cool, man. That was
because like we were doing like a lot of our stuff is like customer testimonials, so like it's fun, like, but it's not like super, you know, it is what it is, and so I think just more the people that we were around, because like everyone that we met and everyone that we worked with, like they're all like such amazing people and like so friendly, and I you know, I think that sometimes when you're you know, you're kind of like coming off like multiple 14-hour days, like being around those types of environments is so crucial to your like mentality and like what your productivity. Like
that's huge, man. Being around the right people is pretty much everything. You know, like that's the number one factor you have to have figured out.
Yeah.
That's been hard for me, finding the right people. But that's also because I came from a pretty dysfunctional lifestyle for a long time. So I'm more getting adjusted to having like people and friends and business partners that are like living good, functional lives. And so that's been nice, but it's caused me to be alone for a long time.
Yeah, because I mean, like once you've like kind of seen, you know, the if you like in a certain lifestyle, and like once you're like change that and switch it up to maybe something that you know you're wanting to like actually like be productive in certain areas or like succeed in certain areas, like and I guess like once other people like don't see it, then like the true side of, unfortunately, some people come out where it's like maybe not as like fun to be around, but like fun is like who cares in that aspect? If you you know you're focused on your career, and if those don't like line up with the you know the people that you were previously like connected with, and
I guess it depends how you look at having fun. Because like me, I'll throw a gainer off a 40-foot, 60-foot cliff. You know what I'm saying? That's fun to me. But if fun to you is like, let's get hammered, I can't do that anymore. And you know, to any of my past friends that I used to hang out with, if they're listening to this, or just in general, like I was probably one of the most dysfunctional. So I'm not saying because of y'all or anything like that. It's just you hang around certain types of environments, you are going to be simulated to it. And you're going to act accordingly. And for me, I always had this challenge of like, these were my friends. This was like what we did. We were young, whatever. I think a lot of us were lost, of course, but I always had this feeling and this like earning that I knew like that's not what I should be doing, but I was social. I wanted to be around people. So it took me a long time, basically a lot of mistakes and some of the same mistakes over and over again for me to be so sick and tired of getting the same results when I know I could get those type of results. But it meant cutting out certain things, and I'm still going through that process where, you know, a lot of times I think a lot of people that know me don't know I experienced this, but like I feel alone most of the time, and I'm building city chapters really to build a community of like-minded individuals that love their city, want to better their environments. But it's a long road and journey for me because it's a big vision. So it's been hard for me to really narrow in on it. We've actually talked about that, like on the sidelines at soccer games here and there. But I feel like with this podcast, the biggest thing is it's getting me to sit down with people that I know have similarities in the way that they think in life, or maybe different, but they're still, you know, doing well in life and pushing for things. So I can learn from both avenues, people that think completely different from me and are yet still doing amazing things in life, and then others that are similar. And so others can find relativity to our conversations. But so 2019 sounds like you weren't barely home.
I mean, like I probably like a couple months out of the year. Yeah, it was a lot. Like there's so many, you know, the international travel, like and as well as the domestic, like like the it was a lot. it was a lot.
Who did Chelsea play?
They played Leicester City.
Yeah,
and I actually got to see Pulisic play, which was great. Yeah. I think that, and it was a season opener, and then I did that, and then because we had a shoot in Manchester, so I took the train to London, and then the next day was Man City and Tottenham, and so I got to see that as well.
Oh, you went to that one too?
Yeah, I went to that one too. Snap. So I got to see two. Yeah. I was trying to pack it all in, and then like the last trip this last February. There's kind of like the last trip that I took with the Kindnss crew. We went to Barcelona for a week, and so I got to see a Barcelona game at Camp Nou, and just, yeah. So it was just all those experiences. It was,
dude, what's it like being at one of those arenas?
Unreal. Like it was the largest stadium that I think
the Barca one.
The Barca one. I think it's like an 80,000 seat capacity.
Yeah.
And like driving up to the stadium, like the atmosphere, I think they ended up winning 4-0. And so like it was unreal. Like
wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't wait. I can't wait till I get to experience that.
Yeah.
I bet I just goosebumps, man. Like
it was goosebumps. And I don't root. I like Barcelona, but I don't root for them. But you still get, you can't get,
it's not about that. It's
goosebumps.
Just the whole, just all the people, the energy that you experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
From just a soccer lover's perspective, it was pretty amazing.
Dude. I'm just smiling ear to ear, just knowing you had that experience, because I dream of, being able to go do that. I've only been to a Sounders game, it's awesome. But I just being overseas and watching these clubs that are been established and are the best players in the world, I can't wait. So that's so cool, man. You said you went to Australia. Was there any cool experiences that you had there as far as like...
it's beautiful. Yeah, I went to Australia, then New Zealand.
You
and
went
both
to
of
both?
those, or just like from just like a scenic and nature point of view. Like they're unbelievably gorgeous. And luckily, like if we would have been down there like probably like a week later, we would have gotten stuck there. Because like we flew back.
Wow.
And then the lockdown probably it happened like 2 weeks after we got back into the States. So we kind of were like, because at the time, this was like, I think it was end of February, like beginning of March that we were down there. And like everyone, no one knew. No one really knew the extent. And we're like, it's something that, it's like the cold or whatever. Right. And when we flew down there, and then Ben and Joni came back a couple days after they were only down there for like 3 days, I think. And then I flew to New Zealand after that for a week. But
just for personal travel.
Nice. But New Zealand, because we were in Sydney, which was great. But being down in New Zealand, being in like just a little bit more of like a remote, being able to go to remote places, like it was unreal.
I've heard. New Zealand's didn't do the Lord of the Rings tour though. No. So next time be kind of a must. I just actually finished reading those books.
All right.
They're long.
They are.
They're hard to get through. There's some moments in those books you're like, this is really depressing.
Yeah.
This is complete. And I was reading it during the winter, which was I figured the best time to read it because I'd have more time to like lay around and read. But there were some moments I'm like, I can't go further right now. So so you are transitioning out of Kindnss.
Yep.
And in the process of starting something new with some new partners.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's come back to that. But I want to talk about your time getting out of Vancouver Film School and transitioning back to Spokane, right? And then Z Nation comes up pretty quickly after that.
Z Nation was 2 or 3 years after. Like I'd worked I did some contract work, and then I was in their commercial department at North by, and that's how I got linked in.
Which is North by Northwest, right?
Yeah. And then that's how I got linked into Z Nation, because North by Northwest, the film side of it, they were kind of like producing Z Nation, co-producing. I then went into Z Nation. 2014.
And You came on as the director,
second unit DP. So like we kind of did like occasionally I would go into like first units, like the main crew, and just act as like an additional camera operator. But like the second unit they would pick up scenes that the first unit wouldn't have time in the schedule for. So we did a lot of like, we still did scenes with like main actors. We did all like the special effects shots, like things blowing up, zombie heads blowing up. So it was very much like a ragtag team. And it was, I loved it. Like, because it was there's he's like kind of, I don't know if you know Juan Moss, but
I do know Juan Moss.
Yeah, I was working right under Juan Moss, and he's a madman, and it was an experience for sure.
Actually, I met Juan, I think it was because I actually did this play that I acted in.
Okay. Yep.
And he came several nights, I believe, and I was introduced to him. And he was like, we were talking about doing something. I can't really recall exactly what me and him were talking about, but I did do an extra on Z Nation for like one episode. I actually haven't seen him since I think I did that play. Maybe I ran into him one time, but do you know what he's up to these days?
He's still doing a lot of film stuff. I think he's still doing a lot of theater stuff. I know he does a lot of theater stuff with like Stage Left.
That's where the play was.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's still, I just saw him a couple weeks ago, I guess, online through like, we were doing like a workshop, that like a general like film workshop.
Yeah.
Zoom. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you say DP, which means director of photography.
Yeah.
What is that actually? It's not actually that just means you're directing the cameras.
Yeah.
Because when I hear it, I'm like, director of photography. I'm like, oh, are they the guys that take behind the scene photos? But this is actually you're running the cinematography.
Yeah. So like cinematographer and director of photography kind of run hand in hand.
Okay.
But like they're basically the people who kind of like, I mean, they're like working side by side with the director. And so the director of photography's goal is, like, to put it in a nutshell, is to basically, put what the director's vision is on screen.
Yeah.
And that varies from partnership to partnership. Some directors take a lot more say in what they want. Some directors are even like the director of photography, like Steven Soderbergh, like he shoots a lot of his own films. And then there are other ones who are very much more like actors, like directors, actors, where they just want to, they worry about performance, and they lean a lot more on the cinematographer to kind of like come up with the visual style. So like, it varies, but generally, the director of photography is there. They work with the art department, they work with their camera team, they work with the grip team, the lighting team, all these other departments to kind of like help facilitate what the director has in mind.
Okay. Yeah, because when I hear like director of photography, like as a person out of the industry, really, I just think like photography, not video,
Yeah.
So I was like, initially I was like, well, what's the difference? Because I don't know nothing.
There's like a behind the scenes photographer.
Right.
And they do that.
Okay. BDS photographer. Okay. But so, I mean, that's a big role for you.
It was cool. It was really cool working on the show. Like it was like kind of like my experiences in Vancouver, it was like very much like an elevated kind of like experience to that, where like now I was like actually like, I was in a lot higher position.
Yeah.
We had a lot more like on the line. But yeah, there every single day was so drastically different. I got to see things that I had never seen before, and I probably won't. Like, you know, I think on like the first day we did like a 4-story explosion. And like there's a lot of crazy stuff that I got to be a part of, and yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
First day, we're just blowing up a
First day,
4-story
it
building.
was an oil tanker, out at Geiger.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just we had like 5 different cameras rolling on it. We were up in I think like on like the 5th or 6th floor of, you know, an old like metal kind of like facility that is like completely run down. And I think I was trying to stand as close to it as possible, and they said, yeah, that's not going to happen. That was a lot of our things. Is like, you know, we would try and get as good of a shot. And this is kind of goes like against what you should normally do, but like there are times when, you just had to set the camera and then just get as
away.
Far out of there as possible. But like we were at Geiger. We got to go through the old out in Medical Lake, like the old psych ward.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, we got to go. We were in
not the psych ward, Medical Lake. I'm from Medical Lake, y'all.
But we got to go in the actual I don't know when the last time it was open, but like it was the building where they did like the monkey training, and that was like creepy. It was just place, me and Juan and one other person. Yeah. We had like one flashlight, and we had to get up to the roof. Yeah. And like walking through that building, like it was terrifying.
It's creepy, yo.
Yeah, yeah. So
I've never been in it, just seen it. And I'm like, no.
It was. I never want to go in again. I nearly freaking fell down an open elevator shaft.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was. Yeah.
Did it feel like just haunted?
It was the closest. Probably like I don't believe in a lot of supernatural stuff, but like that was the closest I've ever like felt it in my body. Because like you'd be walking down these hallways, and there'd be like the cages that would, you know, be only like 2 feet wide. And where they kept all these freaking
messed up.
It's messed up. And you'd be walking by this, and
you could just feel the bad energy, man.
It was terrifying. So, but that was just one of the many memorable moments on Z Nation.
Yeah, that's just once again, I'm not from the monkey psych ward.
No,
I'm from Medical Lake. Yeah. But there's obviously a lot of, you know, obviously the psych wards are up there, and you know what's crazy is that I guess Medical Lake back in the day had the choice between Eastern University or Eastern Washington University or the government ran psych wards, and they chose those over the university. Huh. Yeah, I don't know why, but that'd have been cool to have. I feel like Medical Lake could have been really sweet. You know what I mean? Like I see it, and like the lake, and if you had the university next to the lake, like, you know, it could have been a whole vibe, but it didn't go that way. So and I guess you wouldn't have had the opportunity to shoot in a creepy monkey psych ward. Yeah. There
was a lot of things that I took from Z Nation, just like how fast you have to work, how like efficient you have to be, that I kind of carried into other roles further down the line. Yeah.
That, I mean, just set your level at a certain. Yeah, you just have a certain level that you work at now because of that experience.
Yeah.
And you were there, it said 2014 to 2017, and that was probably not consistent the whole time.
Yeah,
but
like I did the entire first season, and then I did a couple days on the next previous two or three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. So was there any big projects or anything cool that you worked on between like Z Nation and then onto Kindness? Like, was any projects you want to mention there?
There were a lot of like that was the time when I had started the company with those other people. So we actually did some cool like local projects. One for like a straight razor company out of Idaho, Sandpoint, that I really loved. And then I got to work on. There's this out of town. They're from LA, and they were wanting to shoot kind of like a trailer long form commercial for another. It was like a doomsday prepper like company out of Sandpoint as well, and it was this whole like apocalyptic trailer that we shot in Idaho for like 7 days, and it felt like Z Nation again. Yeah. But I thought like visually it turned out really well, and then they ended up like making that into a feature length film with going back to Lord of the Rings. It had one of the what's his hobbits. What's his the ones that look kind of the same, like the brothers,
Merry and Pippin.
Yeah. It had one Merry or Pippin in there. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, those.
What was that film called?
Radio Flash.
Radio Flash.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, both of those.
That's crazy.
Both of those were two of like from just a visual standpoint, I think ones that I was pretty.
So they took your project and were like, we can make a whole movie out of this.
Yeah, I think that was their original intent. Yeah, they just kind of wanted to like sample it and see if it had like an audience. And then I remember it got like just that like commercial got spread around quite a bit on Facebook, because I don't think the same way as Doomsday Preppers. But it got quite a few views. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Your experience there. So you're transitioning out of Kindness. So what are you up to now?
So right now I'm focused on family life first. My wife, like,
it's a good idea.
Yeah. She's we're starting a family here soon ish.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then the next thing that I kind of always like wanted to do after like the commercial production world was like go into the educational space, because I've done a lot of workshops at Eastern, at the Falls, through District 81 with high schoolers, and I really love it, because I think that I knew how important that was in my journey. That at this point, like, with my experience, that I feel like I can offer maybe a more updated take on what I kind of went through,
for sure.
And so then the next step is we're hopefully like starting a multimedia, so like film, photography, music program that will kind of cater towards those kids who don't have that opportunity in like a conventional school system, because it isn't like there are some high schools that have like a film studies class or like a photography class, but I think what we hope to offer that's different from those is once you're not like so obligated to work within, specifically like with high schoolers in District 81, you're not they're so focused on kind of making the cut and like getting certain funding because the grades have to be up to a certain standard. I think if you're kind of like outside of those boundaries, you have so many more opportunities to like teach kids and let kids do something that that is a lot more expressive than maybe they are within a system, you know, within District 81. Yeah, it's very much in the early stages, but yeah, we just want to like provide and especially with kids, like one of the guys that I'm starting with, like he's been a teacher at Pride Prep, the charter school, and a lot of his kids like come from pretty impoverished backgrounds, and film is I think it's the barrier to entry has always been so high, like unfortunately, because it's an expensive it's an expensive thing to get into. Yeah. And I feel like, especially now, like I saw some of the projects that his kids did, and like they basically were like summing up the past couple of years of coming out of COVID and being so isolated, and the voices that they had were just like so strong that I think the next step that in my kind of journey is hopefully opening up more of those doors for those select few that wouldn't have the opportunity prior. Yeah.
Okay. So basically you're going to start, is it going to be like a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, I think that's what we're at this point, kind of like what we're thinking.
And it'll be like an educational studio space. Yeah. Like you're not doing this like through, already established like school program or anything, right? You guys are creating your own program.
We're creating our own program.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And you guys will obviously be seeking to get grants and different things to
some degree,
afford to be able to train or educate these kids and get them into the program. And that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, like, because, I do feel now more than ever, the barrier to entry is lower, but you still need to have the education.
Yeah.
And like you said before, like people think they might be interested, but they might not really know what it entails to do this for a living, to do this at a high level. So they go to college thinking like, oh, this is something I might be interested in. And then they find out they're really not, or they don't have what it takes or whatever that is. But if you start them from a young age, then they already know going into college, like I already got projects. I've already established that this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So they're already on track before they even get to that next college level program, or I mean, some of these kids might be prodigies and be able to skip that process, learning from people like yourself.
That's what we're hoping. Like I was telling my friend who teaches at Pride, like some of those kids are legit, like they're prodigies. Like they're the stuff that they're doing is so elevated and so specific, and like, I think the thing that I always tell students when I work at workshop, like do the workshop, is like, from whether it's from a cinematography aspect or a storytelling aspect or whatever, like there's things that you can get into your head that are what they think are good and bad, like, conventionally like projects. And that is not as important at an early age as trying to develop your voice is. And what I saw in those kids is like I immediately recognized their voice, and that is such a hard thing to acquire, even at my stage of my career. And they're doing it when they're like freaking 15, 16 years old.
Wow.
And so when you see that, it's like, no, like you have to give them a platform to show their work, and you'll have to elevate them, and you have to like
a real opportunity.
Because if they, it would be so easy for those kids to completely go unnoticed and then fall into an unfortunate trap that happens with a lot of kids who are in that situation.
Oh, for sure. And even for kids that aren't from, like, I think Spokane is notorious for this. Like, kids that even come from decent families, like, they fall into the bullshit out here real quick.
Yep.
You know, like, there's a ton of that. It has been happening. It's happening now. Like, kids that come from good households thinking they're gang members and they're out here killing people, like, because of the influences of our social media and the state of music right now from hip hop and all that crap. Like, I came from a decent family and chose to get into a lifestyle that really was not needed.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go that way, but I was lost and I was angry, and I ended up going down those paths with other individuals that were, and definitely, you know, caused a lot of damage in my life and damage to other people as well. But if I had, you know, mentorship, real leadership, which is, I think, the biggest thing that we do not have in our society, is real leadership and mentorship. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. There are the people out there that are great men, great women, great leaders to youth, but we certainly obviously don't have enough of it.
Yep.
And so anybody that can participate in it is going to have some kind of good effect. And even if it saves one kid to stay on track to go do film who ends up doing, at least just making a living doing it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But if we, you know, you are in the process because you take a leadership role for a youth and he ends up becoming maybe one of the best directors or something, like, that would be amazing. And we need that for our city, you know, like we need to start getting our individuals that are doing these creative processes recognized globally.
Yep.
Globally. Like, we need to be global. We need to start getting to that level to where everybody in Spokane knows that, because that's the thing. Like, we have a lot of great people in Spokane, but nobody really knows them. You know what I mean? Like, as a whole society, like, there's probably not one person from here that everybody in Spokane knows is from here. You know, you have people like Alan Stone, but even Alan Stone, like, there's, I bet, like 40%, 50% of Spokane doesn't even know who he is. You know what I mean? I don't know that for sure, but that'd be my guess.
Yeah.
If you just ask the random person who Alan Stone is, you know, you probably get a 50-50 there. I don't know for sure, but that's my estimate. Or, you know, there's obviously just a lot of great individuals that, you know, that's why I want to do this podcast too, is like, so people can learn more about individuals like yourself. Like, I knew that you probably worked on Z Nation before. I think I had known something of that nature. I did not know you were a director of photography for that many years. You know what I mean? And on that many episodes. So that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, getting to sit down and, like, now that you're about to be Ricky Lee too. You know what I mean? Hopefully, be the master Ricky Lee.
No, I think just kind of going off of your point, it's just like what I'd kind of like experienced and witnessed, you know, when I was like coming up, and like, I think it's a large part to it. There are certain people who have been around industries, specifically film industries in Spokane from the beginning, and there's a large like part of that they kind of like, there's a gatekeeping aspect to it, or like, no, this is ours, like, and we're not gonna relinquish it until we're friggin' dead. And that is such a destructive thing to industry in Spokane, because it is small and it is still emerging, where like, if you're having,
it's stifling, right?
If you have people at the top, and this goes back to any like field of work. If you have people at the top who are just constantly shutting that door, then like, the only people that are going to be able to get through it are the people that they know. And that's happened time and time again in Spokane.
Oh yeah.
And
not even just in that industry.
No. And
it's like a Spokane thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's hopefully with what you're doing, with hopefully like with the program that we're trying to start. And like, I know other people who are kind of in the same sort of stage of life as we are, that I'm hoping that we're able to then, like there's along with that, like gatekeeping is obviously large egos that go along with it. And like, screw that. Like, I would much rather have the younger kids freaking do greater things than we've ever done, because that's the only way that, it's the only way that Spokane is going to become,
I think they're scared of that. Obviously those people are scared because, I mean, the only reason you do gatekeeping and that kind of stuff is because you're insecure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like I think you always work at your highest level to compete, but I'm not going to try to stop you from getting in the door if you have the opportunity to, like, and you got to go, like, it doesn't mean like I got to give you necessarily me, if I'm a competitor of you, like I don't necessarily have to give you all the assets and tools. If you built it on your own, build it on your own, but I'm not going to do anything to stop you.
Yeah.
Because healthy competition is great. And the more that each of us flourish here, the more of us that are successful here, it's the better for our environment. And so I'm all the way with you, man. I want to break down those walls in any formats that I can. I think that's, the kind of the overall mission of city chapters as a whole, but in Spokane specifically, is like, how do we start breaking down these walls that have been holding against creativity really and culture really flourishing here? It's time. You can tell it's starting to erode away. They're not going to be able to keep us all out. That's just bottom line. So yeah, the individuals like us that are, you're going to be doing something very specific. Mine is more trying to work in general with all of you that are doing things like this and seeing how I can help influence and create that change from a media standpoint, I guess. But, yeah, man, I think there's all sorts of prodigies from Spokane, and always has been, but they haven't been given the right opportunities, or the right form of education for them to really have a chance to compete against other markets that are doing things at the highest levels, and like, I think that's something that we, like I was saying on another podcast, is like, if we all realize that we are professionals and we have access to do things now. I don't think we did before, but I do think now we do have access to do anything we want to do at the highest professional levels that equate over to big markets like LA, New York, and we need people to educate us, people that did have an experience during a certain era that now can translate to this era too.
Yep.
And then these individuals now really do have a way bigger opportunity and chance than we did. Because when we started things in Spokane, even back in 2016, 15, like things were completely different than they are now, and so the biggest thing I want to get to it is to that level, to show like youngins, like, yo, anything's possible from our town. And we can create something amazing here. Culture, like for me, I love movies. I love acting. I was actually like talking to 3 management companies when I was in high school for acting, and like was working on some stuff. I was supposed to move down there when I was 18 and sign with one, but by the time I turned 18, I was lost. Basically, long story short. So like for me, like there's there's a dream of mine to be involved in a movie, you know, as an actor at some point. And I've have a few script ideas. So film and that world is something that I've always been very interested in. So, you know, with city chapters, this is my focus now, because I think it'll open all the doors that I need to experience other aspects of life that I want to have. But, yeah, so I'm really excited for this. Do you guys have any like time frame that you were at as far as
it's gonna be a bit? I think there's a lot of things that we have to kind of like conceptualize specifically from a curriculum standpoint. Yeah. Because we're not like, all of us have a lot of experience in our own industries, but from an educational standpoint, we're not as like, outside of my one friend who's been at Pride, we don't have as much, we don't have as much time in that field as we probably need to. So it's gonna be a bit, and we're gonna start kind of like networking and just kind of getting a feel for where we can kind of like, get funding, the studio space for it, like the what type of like size of class and kids. So yeah, it'll be
just at the ground level right now.
Yeah, ground level. Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Oh man, it's exciting though.
Yeah.
It's like a big why, yeah, big drive, big why. Yeah. And huge. I mean, because like we've already been hearing people talk about like, actual studios coming into town because they like the market here, the scenery around Spokane that you can get access to. So it's already been bubbling. And then to have youngins being educated here on how they could actually like, it all is kind of coming together for a film to be bigger here.
Yeah. I really, it's odd that Spokane hasn't kind of like exploded more, because it's just set up for, you drive 15 miles north, south, east, west. You have so many different looks. Yeah. It's a mid-size town. You have plenty of space to build studios. Like there's just all the factors that go in. I mean, you look at what happened in like, place like New Mexico, like Albuquerque, like how fast that exploded. And like, it's not that bit much. We're kind of similar in size, I think, at least. So I'm hoping within, the next like 10 years that, we're at a stage where we're competing with Seattle, LA, Vancouver in terms of talent and projects.
Be awesome, man. Can't wait. Well, let's see. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
No, I think we pretty much ran over, all the things that have happened up until this point.
Well, we'll have to have you back on once this educational studio, and is that what it's going to be called? What would you call it?
It's probably, I think educational studio is a pretty accurate description of what it'll like just a multimedia educational studio. Well,
we'll have to have you back on once that's up and running, man.
For sure.
It's been going for a little while, and hear about some of the stories of these kids that are, doing amazing projects, and learn more about that. Well, cool. All right. That was chapter 6 with Jade Warpenburg. I'm your host, Bobby J, and this is the City Chats Podcast. See you till next time. I mix my humble beginners with winners and chemists as far as I know. Whoa, sugar and spice, I'm everything nice. I give you advice, they give you a price. If you paid attention, you'll see what I'm kicking. I'm wasting your money by saying it twice. Shit is a game, you wanna complain, you blaming your L's on the dice. Mama just whipped up the cobbler, so I had to call it a reserve a slice. Whole fam gotta eat, closed mouth don't get fed. So all I had to do was speak. Now I'm talking myself in the bread, and y'all been talking me disease. Sleepwalking was